A man knelt by a river in Persia after 21 days of fasting and silence, his spirit burdened by his journey. As he looked up and saw the movement on the water, his face drained of color, as if life had left him in that instant. Daniel wasn't looking at God, but at one of his messengers, and that glance almost cost him his life in an instant. Few dare to imagine that the most beautiful being God created was an angel, a creature of immense power and grace. That being stood before the throne, its wings enveloping it, reflecting a glory not its own, but that of the Creator. One day, that being gazed upon itself and had a thought that split the heavens, forever altering the course of existence. The truth about angels is stranger and more terrifying than any painting, revealing layers of complexity and mystery. Today, we will explore the history of angels, from their joyful first song to the tragic fall that changed everything. To grasp this, we must return to a moment before time, before the world's first dawn and the birth of light. Imagine absolute nothingness, not darkness, but the complete absence of anything, a true void without form or substance. Imagine a throne already present before creation, a symbol of authority and power. Around the throne, a vast kingdom sang with a voice beyond human ears, a celestial chorus echoing through the realm. The Book of Job holds a line from that morning, a profound question from God directed at the prophet. God asks him where he was when the earth's foundations were laid, a moment of creation echoing through eternity. It was the moment when the morning stars sang together and the sons of God shouted for joy, their voices rising in unison. Read that line carefully, for someone was already there singing when the earth was barely formed, a witness to the creation. The Hebrew term Bene Elohim, meaning sons of God, refers not to human children, but to divine beings instead. The psalmist affirms, "He commanded, and they were created instantly," showcasing God's supreme authority. They were called the army of heaven, for the Hebrew word Sava literally means an armed army, a force of celestial beings. The vast army of heaven stood on the edge of eternal division, a split that would resonate through the ages. Now, let us move to the year King Uzziah died, about 740 years before Christ, a pivotal moment in history. Jerusalem was in mourning, and a young man named Isaiah found himself completely alone within the temple, lost in thought. At first, he sensed the incense, a familiar scent he knew well, but that day it felt different, almost alive. Suddenly, the temple ceiling vanished, without warning or a moment's notice, a divine interruption in the air. One moment he was in the temple, and the next, it transformed into the heavens, a breathtaking sight to behold. Above him was a throne, and on it sat the Lord, whose glory filled the space, overwhelming Isaiah's senses entirely. Above the throne floated fiery creatures, each with 6 wings, a sight both majestic and terrifying to Isaiah. Not 2 wings, but 6. 2 covered their faces, 2 their feet, and the last 2 were for flying. The Hebrew word for them is Seraphim, from an ancient root meaning to burn, aptly describing their fiery nature. They were not merely shining, they were burning, like a fire that had taken the form of a person, radiating divine light. One of them opened its mouth, and the sound bypassed Isaiah's ears, igniting a fire in his chest and spirit. "Holy!" cried one creature, and another echoed from the opposite side of the throne, creating a chorus of worship. The temple stones trembled, dust fell, and the very architecture of heaven shook under the weight of their voices. Holy is the Lord of hosts. The earth is filled with his pure glory, a declaration that echoes through the cosmos. A single thought cut through the thunder of voices. I am going to die, for I have seen the King with my own eyes. Woe is me, he cried, for I am lost, a man of unclean lips before such holiness, painfully aware of my unworthiness. A seraph flew to him, holding a burning coal from the altar with tongs, symbolizing purification and divine grace. A coal so hot that even the seraph of fire could not touch it, a testament to the intensity of God's presence. He pressed it to Isaiah's lips, igniting a burn as he sensed their transformation in that moment of divine connection. The voice from the throne asked whom he would send, and Isaiah, burned and empty, replied, "Here I am, send me." Pause for a moment in that heavenly chamber and calmly feel everything that has just transpired within that sacred space. The beings nearest to God's throne cover their faces in his presence, a profound sign of reverence and awe. While seraphim are burning worshippers, cherubim are fierce guardians of the throne, ever vigilant and relentless. Forget the chubby winged babies and ornate Renaissance ceilings. They misrepresent the truth of art and its deeper meaning. The biblical cherub is no tender child. Its majesty would compel you to cover your eyes in sheer terror. We first encountered them on the worst day in all of human history, right at the gates of paradise. A moment of tragic loss. The garden was empty as Adam and Eve walked east, weeping, the taste of forbidden fruit still lingering in their mouths. And behind them, at the eastern gate of Eden, God placed something terrible to guard the way, a barrier against their return. He set cherubim and a flaming sword to guard the way to the tree of life, fiercely protecting divine order. A sword of fire moved on its own, with the cherubim standing behind it, immobile and watchful, ever mindful of their duty. And they have remained there ever since, watching over that invisible boundary that no man must ever cross, a divine decree. Centuries later, by the river Chebar in Babylon, the prophet Ezekiel saw a haunting vision with his own eyes. What he wrote has troubled readers for over 2,000 years, never giving them a moment's rest from its implications. He saw a stormy wind coming from the north, and within the storm was a fire that never went out, a consuming presence. Within the fire were 4 living creatures, each with 4 faces, a sight both bewildering and awe-inspiring. Each creature had a human face in front, a lion's on the right, an ox's on the left, and an eagle's at the back. They had 4 wings, human hands beneath them, and feet that sparkled like polished bronze, reflecting heavenly light. Beside each creature was a wheel, unlike any flat wheel known to man, a divine mystery waiting to be unraveled. They were wheels within wheels, turning in every direction at once without ever needing to stop, a symbol of divine movement. The wheel's towering rims instilled fear, adorned with eyes all around, creating a vision of all-knowing presence. When the creatures spread their wings, the sound roared like mighty waters, echoing through the heavens. It sounded like the very voice of the Almighty, and Ezekiel fell on his face, unable to stand in the presence of such glory. And here is something that most believers never manage to connect within their own sacred history, a profound truth. When God commanded Moses to build the Ark of the Covenant, he gave a certainly strange instruction that raises questions. He ordered him to create 2 golden cherubim with wings stretched over the Ark's holy mercy seat, a divine design. The same God who in the next breath prohibited Israel from making any carved or graven image, a seeming contradiction. Why would he do such a thing, apparently contradicting his own commandment against carved images? The answer is profound. Because they were not idols, but the empty space where the invisible God sat enthroned in absolute silence, a divine mystery. Where Israel saw the wings of the cherubim arched over the ark, they knew that there, between them, he was present. Now let us return to Daniel, still by the Tigris after 21 long, exhausting days of fasting. His cracked lips had not tasted good bread, but finally the long-awaited messenger arrived, bringing a moment of hope. That messenger, whose face was like lightning and whose eyes were like torches, explained his delay with urgency and clarity. He told Daniel that from day one his humble heart made his words heard on high, creating a divine connection. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia had opposed him for 21 full days, blocking his path and delaying the message. Until Michael, one of the chief princes of heaven, finally came to his aid to liberate him from the spiritual battle above. Stop and read this again. For 21 days a war was fought in the air above Daniel, a conflict unseen by human eyes. A spiritual being, the Prince of Persia, was blocking the messenger's arrival from reaching its destination on earth. The messenger could not make his way until Michael came, and the name Michael holds an ancient Hebrew question within it. It means, who is like God? And it is in no way a polite question, but rather a genuine battle cry, a declaration of war. The book of Jude recounts that he once contended with the devil over the body of Moses, confronting him face to face. And even then, he did not dare to bring a railing accusation against him on his own authority, but said, "The Lord rebuke you." Even the mightiest warrior of heaven knows his place in the divine chain of command, a true lesson in humility. And there exists another messenger distinct from Michael, much quieter but no less powerful or fearsome in his own right. His name is Gabriel, which means God is my strength, and he appears at the most decisive moments in history, a divine envoy. A young priest named Zechariah was completely alone in the temple, lighting the incense before the altar, lost in his duties. Suddenly, he was no longer alone. A silent figure stood beside the altar of incense, a divine visitation. Zechariah saw him, and his heart failed within his chest, unable to utter even a single word in the presence of such glory. The figure said, "Do not be afraid, Zechariah. Your prayer has been heard." Then spoke 5 words that changed everything. "I am Gabriel, and I stand in the very presence of God," said that being to the trembling priest, a declaration of authority. The same Gabriel who had spoken with Daniel 500 years earlier, interpreting for him the 70 weeks of prophecy. The same Gabriel who would later visit a humble Nazareth home to speak with a young girl, a moment of divine purpose. Imagine her room, where afternoon light streams through a narrow window onto the packed dirt floor, a scene of simplicity. Mary was doing something ordinary, perhaps grinding flour, when she lifted her gaze and discovered that he was already there. He had not opened the door. He was simply present, standing in the middle of that small, silent room, a divine interruption. He spoke to her gently and told her that she would conceive a son who would be called the Son of the Most High among men. He told her the child's kingdom would never end, then paused, waiting in silence for her response. He is asking, Mary thought, truly waiting for my answer, as if everything now depended solely on me, a moment of choice. "Behold the handmaid of the Lord," she said. "Let it be to me as you wish," accepting the divine will without resistance. And Gabriel, older than the earth, who had stood before God since before the sun existed, bowed his head in reverence. Have you ever imagined discovering a being older than the world, waiting for your response? It's a profound thought. Heaven never forces the door of the soul. Heaven simply knocks and then waits with infinite patience for a reply. We now reach the strangest chapter of angelic history, revealing the world before the Great Flood, a pivotal moment. It starts with a line from Genesis. "The sons of God saw the daughters of men were beautiful," a moment of temptation. They chose wives from among all they desired, guided by their dark inclinations, leading to a tragic outcome. Once more, we see the phrase Bene Elohim, echoing the joy of God's sons at creation, linking us to the divine. They were not righteous humans, but created spirits, and the book of Daniel warns about them in a very particular way. He calls them watchers, in Aramaic the awake ones, the sentinels who never sleep nor close their eyes, a constant vigilance. But 200 abandoned their posts, and that desertion changed the fate of the world, a catastrophic decision. The mountain called Hermon still stands. You can drive to its foot today, a site rich in history. It rises nearly 3,000 meters, the Levant's highest peak, and its snow-capped summit is a majestic summer sight. At night, the wind swept over the snow, and the scent of cedar rose from the slopes, a fragrant reminder of creation. And at the summit, under the stars, stood 200 immobile figures immersed in a terrible silence, a moment of decision. Their leader, Samyaza, stood at the edge of the high precipice, a figure of authority from ancient memory. The other watchers stood behind him in a semicircle, and no one dared to utter a word, a moment of tension and uncertainty. A younger boy at the back of the group thought something his brothers wouldn't dare to say, caught in a moment of hesitation. "We were created to watch, not to take," he thought, gazing at a specific village far below in the depths, a moment of clarity. Samyaza turned and whispered, "Brothers, we agree. We will share whatever comes, a pact of rebellion. No one will face punishment alone." 200 voices united in defiance responded as one, a powerful chorus of solidarity. The sound of 200 immortals swearing an oath on a summit has never been recorded, marking a historic moment. They descended from the mountain to the men, forever breaking the sacred order entrusted to them, a tragic fall. The Book of Enoch, referenced by Peter and Jude, adds details that deeply resonate, serving as a warning of consequences. The Watchers not only took wives but also taught, pouring out forbidden knowledge like pure poison, a destructive legacy. They taught to forge swords and shields, mix poisons, enchant serpents, and read cursed stars, a dark education indeed. From those unions came the Nephilim, the fallen giants who terrorized the earth, leaving behind a legacy of fear. There were giants on the earth in those days, mighty men, the ancient men of renown and legend, a terrifying reality. One night, a young woman in the plain heard a voice from the tent and saw an unfamiliar being when she opened it. He was tall and very beautiful, and his skin had a faint glow that the small oil lamp could not explain, a divine radiance. He spoke her language like music, telling her she was chosen for something extraordinary, a moment of destiny. He told her she'd be the mother of someone legendary, and in the morning she doubted if it had all been a dream. 9 months later, The midwife gasped at the sight of the unusually large and silent newborn, hinting at his true nature. By age 10, he was as big as an adult, and by 20, no one could rival him, a true force of nature. He destroyed all in his path, seized what he wanted, and scorned his mother whenever she tried to correct him. Every time she looked at him, she saw in his eyes the haunting reminder of the being who came to her tent that dark night. All over the earth, mothers raised children who terrified them, villages consumed by violence. A truly grim picture. The earth was filled with violence, and the Watchers faced the judgment unleashed by their own desertion of the world. The Apostle Peter wrote it with a terrifying precision that leaves no room for any reasonable doubt about the consequences. God did not spare the angels who sinned. He cast them into the abyss, binding them in darkness as a dire warning. Peter used the Greek word Tartarus for that place, an abyss far deeper than any human can comprehend. In Greek mythology, Tartarus was the prison of rebellious gods, located beneath the very underworld, a place of torment. Chained in darkness beneath the earth, they await judgment while you breathe. A sobering thought indeed. One day, the book of Job says, "The sons of God gathered before the Lord at his throne," a celestial assembly. Picture the council, a grand assembly, as the Bene Elohim arrive in perfect order, showcasing their divine hierarchy. He arrived last, as always, unhurried, with the calculated precision of someone who knows his authority and power. The Hebrew text calls him Hasatan, the adversary, the accuser, and the definite article is crucial for understanding. He is not yet a proper name, but the prosecuting attorney of God's heavenly court, a role of great significance. He stopped before the throne, and the Lord asked where he had come from, a question that felt almost routine. He replied in a cold, indifferent voice, a chilling response after going to and fro on the earth and walking back and forth. Then the Lord asked Job a question that would forever change his life, a pivotal moment in the story. "Have you thought of my servant Job, a perfect man who fears God and shuns evil?" A question that reached the heavens. The accuser tilted his head, his lips curling into a smirk that hinted at something far more sinister beneath the surface. "Does Job fear God for nothing?" he asked. "Have you not put a hedge around him and around his household and all that he has? Stretch out your hand and touch all he has. He will surely curse you to your face, defying divine justice." The court fell silent, for he had built his entire accusation in just 3 devastating phrases, a powerful indictment. "Job isn't righteous," he said. "He's well compensated. Remove that salary and see what he'll truly do." A calculated gamble. And the Lord, for reasons that no human will ever fully understand in this life, simply responded, "Very well, go ahead." The accuser left the court, and in the air began to gather his weapons to unleash them all upon Job, a storm of calamity. Fire from heaven, raiders from the south, and a windstorm fell upon him in a single afternoon of total terror, a divine test. Job lost his oxen, his sheep, his camels, his servants, and his 10 children in those few bitter hours, a devastating loss. He tore his robe, shaved his head, fell to the ground, and said, "The Lord gave and has taken away. Blessed be his name." Somewhere above him, the accuser watched, and an unexpected thought pierced through him, a moment of disbelief and confusion. "This cannot be," he thought, returning to the council to demand a second hearing and press his case with relentless pursuit. "Skin for skin," he said. Touch his body, and he will curse you. Yet Job never cursed God, showing remarkable faith. Many believers overlook this in the Old Testament. The accuser isn't yet the devil, which is a crucial distinction. Only later, when Jesus walks the earth, has the prosecutor of the court become the criminal, a transformation of roles. He was a murderer from the beginning and did not abide in the truth, because there is no truth in him. A chilling revelation. Something had occurred between the court of Job and the Gospels, something that transformed a member of the Holy Council. Something turned him into the dragon of the Apocalypse, and that was older than Job and even the lost Adam. A tragic history. On a sacred mountain, the most beautiful being gazed upon itself in the radiant glory of God. Two prophets, Isaiah and Ezekiel, faced a strange task that started as a political prophecy, a moment of divine revelation. Isaiah was called to confront the king of Babylon, while Ezekiel was tasked with harsh words for the king of Tyre. In the midst of each prophecy, the language shifts, and the prophet moves away from describing just a human king. He starts to reveal more, something behind the throne, where the human monarch is just a distant echo of a deeper truth. Listen to Ezekiel. You were the anointed cherub. I placed you on God's holy mountain among the fiery stones. You walked perfect in all your ways from the day you were created until iniquity was found in you, a tragic fall from grace. You were the anointed cherub, whose wings shielded God's throne, even closer than the seraphim themselves. Ezekiel describes him adorned with precious stones, sardius, topaz, diamond, onyx, and sapphire, a true being of beauty. 9 stones, the same ones that would later adorn the high priest's breastplate before God, symbolizing a divine connection. He was the original priest, standing before God for the whole army of heaven, a role of great significance. Isaiah gives him a name, Hillel ben Shahar, the Shining One, Son of the Dawn, the bright morning star, a title of glory. The Latin Vulgate translated that expression as Lucifer, the Lightbearer, and over the centuries it became a name of infamy. Imagine him in the throne room, his body refracting God's light in 9 dazzling colors, a truly breathtaking sight. As he passed another angel, God's glory shone in him like a living mirror, a divine reflection of light and grace. His role was to reveal God to the heavenly army, doing so without any hint of self-importance or pretense. His voice, that of the chief musician, wove into every harmony, completing the song of heaven, a true celestial symphony. And then one day, we do not know when or why, he caught his own reflection in one of the burning stones, a moment of vanity. He paused, looked at himself, and had a thought. This is beautiful. And after the smallest pause came the second half. He did not think that the glory of God was beautiful, rather he thought, I am beautiful, and he could not abandon that idea. He was made to reflect and chose to be contemplated. Created to worship, he decided he wanted to be worshipped. The devil wasn't always evil. He was once God's most beautiful creation, perfect for a time. A tragic irony. The horror lies not in a monster wanting to overthrow God, but in the fall of the most glorious creature who dared to do so. Have you ever held something precious and stopped being grateful, thinking you deserved it? Take a moment to reflect. It is the same disease that first broke heaven and still runs through every human heart, a universal truth. Isaiah recorded his 5 phrases: I will ascend to heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit on the mount of the congregation. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. 5 times he said I, 5 steps on an invisible staircase leading only to his ruin, a tragic descent into darkness. 1/3 of the angels in heaven believed him, and for the first time, one voice fell silent, bringing a moment of stillness. Since the morning the sons of God shouted for joy, heaven has been in constant praise without a moment's silence. From the front of the loyal ones, a figure stepped forward. It was Michael, calm and steady, not running or shouting. He walked, raised his sword, and with a calm voice asked the question that defines his name. A moment of authority. Who is like God? He said. And it was the answer to every word that the morning star had just pronounced. A divine challenge. It was the final word in heaven before war erupted between the light and the falling light. A cosmic conflict. The apocalypse tells of a heavenly war where Michael and his angels battled the dragon and his forces in a celestial clash. The dragon fell, losing its place in heaven, and the morning star descended from grace into darkness. He fell, passing before the Seraphim, and for the first time in eternity, the Seraphim did not cover their own faces in awe. For a moment, the most beautiful being in the room was no longer at the forefront of the universe's history. He fell before the cherubim, and the wheels covered with eyes, and every gaze turned to witness his tragic fall. He fell through layers that no human has seen, with 1/3 of the army of heaven falling behind him like leaves in the wind. He struck the earth, and the first thing the dragon said in his new home was never recorded, just a moment of silence. The throne stayed on its pedestal, the song regained its harmony, and the universe felt less beautiful, a tragic reality. The stones of fire burned in the throne room, now in 8 colors instead of 9, marking a loss of glory. Ezekiel's pre-written verdict would descend upon him like a crushing weight, a divine judgment he could not escape. I will cast you down, lay you before kings, reduce you to ashes, and you will cease to exist. A finality. Read that last line again. Slowly, you will never exist again. Never in all eternity. A chilling thought to ponder. Now, step back a little from all this. The seraphim continue to burn, and the cherubim continue to guard the sacred space. The watchers stay chained below, while the morning star falls through history, reminding us of what once was. In the last chapter of the Bible, Jesus speaks of himself, a declaration that should stop you in your tracks. I am the root and offspring of David, the bright morning star. Read that twice, a profound divine truth. Jesus reclaimed his title, taking back what was rightfully his from those who tried to seize it by force. The morning star is no longer a fallen cherub. The morning star is now the true Son of God, a restoration of glory. The throne is occupied by the true light, while the false light has been reduced entirely to ashes, a cosmic shift in power. And then the Apostle Paul writes a phrase that even the angels themselves would tremble to read aloud, a profound truth. Do you not know we humans will one day judge the angels of heaven? A staggering thought that elevates our purpose. You, watching this on a screen, with your weakness, forgetfulness, and unanswered prayers, take a moment to reflect. You are higher in God's plan than the seraphim, not because of anything you have ever done for yourself, but by divine grace. The Son of God did not take on an angel's body, but fully embraced yours, a profound mystery. The morning star fell seeking worship, a tragic irony etched in the ruins of its descent. revealing a profound lesson. The created can never become the creator. The reflection can never become the light that originates it, a fundamental truth. The only question that truly matters at the end is simple: where do you look? Take a moment for introspection. Do you see your reflection in your gifts, or do you gaze at the one whose glory blinds the seraphim? It's a choice. If this revealed the scriptures to you in a new way, subscribe to explore more mysteries on this journey of faith.